So in the previous two videos, we were using quite a brute force method of essentially trial and improvement to home in on the root. There are other numerical methods out there that can solve equations. And what we're going to be looking at for the rest of this section are essentially a way of kind of homing in on the root, homing in on the solution to the equation, using what's referred to as recursive formulae. Some people also call it an inductive definition, but that has also a broader meaning. So, the first thing we need to do is really understand what the notation is really saying, okay? So, let's say I had this rule, okay? Now, we're going to be doing more with sequences later in an upcoming section. But we're going to introduce it here. So we've got this rule that says to get to the next term, you must subtract 5 from the previous term and then divide the result by 3. Okay? So let's say we just had a number. Let's say we had a number and the previous term was the number 2, let's say. Okay? So the last number was 2. To get the next term in the sequence, we need to subtract 5 from that and then divide that result by 3. So 2 take away 5 is minus 3, divided by 3 is minus 1. So the next term in the sequence would be minus 1. And then to get the next term, we must subtract 5 from that and then divide the result by 3. So minus 1 take away 5 is minus 6, divided by 3 is minus 2. Okay, and then to get the next term, we need to subtract 5 from minus 2, which would be minus 7, divided through by 3, we get minus 7/3, and so on and so forth. Okay, and this generates a sequence. We have 2, minus 1, minus 2, minus 7/3, etc. Okay? Now, you can see that I've taken 3 lines to write down what I want that to do. And what we need is some notation that describes exactly the same thing. Okay? So, the first thing is that we started with the number 2. So we need some kind of notation that tells us what number we're starting with, right? So the notation that we use is the letter U, okay? So we write U1 to mean the first term. So this is the first term of the sequence, okay? Now, you can use other letters as well. You might see other letters being used in exam questions and things like that, textbooks, etc. But U is a pretty usual one to see, okay? So don't get put off by the letter. That's what I mean. So if you see someone's written V1 equals 2, don't then go, oh, it's something completely different. It's not, okay? So then we need a way of writing down this rule. So essentially we need a way of writing down what we mean by the next term and the previous term, okay? So if we said that the previous term, so let's call the previous term UN. So the reason why we would use that notation is that U obviously is the name of the sequence that I'm using. I'm using U's there, okay? And the N here can be any positive integer. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And it tells you where you are in the sequence. So U1 is the first term, U2 is the second term, U3 is the third term, U4 is the fourth term, etc. So if we use that to mean the previous term, then the term after that, the next term, we could say that that's UN. n plus 1, because if that's n, then the next term must be n plus 1. You're just adding 1 onto it, okay, going from third to fourth term, or fourth to fifth term, or 100th to 101st term, okay? So once we've kind of defined that notation, then we're saying to get the next term, so un plus 1, the next term is equal to the previous term, take away 5, because we're subtracting 5 from the previous term. So the previous term, take away 5. The previous term, take away 5, divided by 3. And here, together, we have a recursive formula. Okay? This defines a sequence. You might also come across that this bit here is often referred to as a recurrence relation. Okay? But you won't kind of like see all of this language being used in the exam. But recursive formula or inductive definition, these are kind of like names to be aware of. But quite often I would expect you'll just see this notation, and it's really making sure that you understand what it means and how to use it.